What's up, guys? Welcome to Move to Action. Hope you're having a phenomenal day. Hey, we've all taken tests. Maybe you took them in school, maybe you're still in school, but we can all remember a time where we took a test. Now, do you remember the feeling? Now, me, I felt this feeling very rarely, but you know the feeling of walking into a test that you know you're ready for? Walking into a test that you were about to just blast. Like you feel this great feeling inside. There's very few feelings that are worse than walking into a test that you're not ready for. Let me tell you the story. I was a senior at Carnes High School, and we had this AP environmental science class. So it was the first year for this AP class, all this stuff, and I took it because my two friends were taking it, right? And so I did not do well as a student. I really regret that. But in high school, I didn't do very well as a student. So I skipped this class a lot. It was right there around lunchtime. So had to go to Taco Bell, things like that. So I remember walking in for our first test, right? And I sat down. This is real life. Our teacher name was Mr. Lakin. He was missing part of his finger from a saw accident. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember reading the first question, raising my hand and saying, Mr. Lakin, what do you do if you can't read three of the words on the first question of the test? And he said, well, it sounds like you should go to lunch early. And I got up and I walked out. I was so unprepared, I didn't even recognize some of the words. It is so hard to not be prepared. It's just this sinking feeling. Now, how does that connect to move to action, us moving to action consistently? I got this when I was reading the Bible, my Bible reading plan. I think this is huge. Let me read this to you. This is in 2 Chronicles 9. I'm going to start in verse 1. It said, and this is when we're talking about Solomon, right, the wisest king that ever lived. It says this: when the queen of Sheba heard of Solomon's fame, she came to Jerusalem to test him with hard questions. Now listen, if you say that you're a Christ follower, if you say that you live for anything legitimate, you will be tested. If you stand up for anything, whether it's right or wrong, you will be tested. I'm sure if you're watching this, you're standing up for something. Maybe it's for God. Maybe it's for relationships. Maybe it's to be successful. But you're standing up for something. That means you will see oppositions. You will see tests. My question is, how do we respond? Do we respond with getting very defensive and very insecure? Because that is a pretty surefire way to know that somebody is not prepared for the tests. So here's the question: how do we be prepared? Right? And like with our faith, everybody's going to have a different challenge or whatever. How do we prepare to defend our faith? How do we be prepared for emotional challenges or professional? How do we be prepared? I think that we see the answer if we keep reading in Second Chronicles 9, right? It says she arrived with hard questions. It says arriving with a very great caravan with camels and spices and large quantities of gold and precious stones, she came to Solomon and talked with him about all she had on her mind. Solomon answered all of her questions. Nothing was too hard for him to explain. So Solomon had answers. So listen, if you don't have the answers, that's fine. Slow down. We can always find the answers, but that's not the big part I want you to see. Solomon answered all of her questions, not too hard for him to explain. When the queen of Sheba saw the wisdom of Solomon, so she saw something that showed wisdom, as well as the place he had built, and the food on his table, and the seating of his officials, and the attention of his servants to their robes, and the cupbearers in their robes, and the burnt offerings that he made in the temple of the Lord. It says she was overwhelmed. She came to test him and was so overwhelmed with what she saw. I want you to be very clear. She saw people moving to action. That's it. She saw people who dressed well. She saw people who were prepared. She saw people who showed up, and maybe they didn't have all the answers, but they came ready. They didn't come insecure. They didn't come scared. They came bold and prepared. So here's what I want to tell you. You're going to have tests, again, with your faith, relationally, professionally, with your success, what God has called you to. But all we have to do is be prepared to move. God will give you the answers. However, if you are controlled by your insecurity and your doubt, then those are the voices you'll hear, not the voice of God giving you wisdom to find those answers. So what we have to be prepared for is, number one, here's our move to action step. Number one is to know you will be tested. Know you'll be tested. Number two is to prepare to be tested by moving to action on the things you know you should. Taking care of your body, having your time with God, preparing yourself for those spiritual tests, for those emotional tests, and surrounding yourself with people who are also prepared. Remember, people put power to the plan. So I need you to know you're going to be tested. But we can move through this test with a little bit of preparation and knowing whose we are. Guys, I love you. And we have to pass this test because the world is testing our faith to prove us wrong. But our God is so right. So let's be prepared. Let's pass this test. Let's not only change our lives, but the people's lives around you. I love you. I'm proud of you. Share this with somebody. I'll see you next week.